Now, there may be times in the world where I can't stand up or I don't want to stand up, all right? If I'm sitting at a booth, if I'm in a car, or if somebody's watching me and I'm just trying to get the pistol out while I do it.
The Mantis X10 Firearms Performance System is an invaluable training tool for shooters of all levels to make themselves better with their defensive firearms.
Hey guys, welcome to Mantis Dry Fire Monday. This is Active Self-Protection Extra, and I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant. For a long time, I taught force readiness classes. Of course, the nature and conditions of our living right now, I haven't taught that nearly as much as I used to, but it used to be once or twice a month for 5 or 6 years of teaching that class, which gave me a lot of data and allowed me to practice in a lot of positions because it was all about how to use force as we live as the armed citizen. From the first signs of danger to the legal aftermath, we explored all of it. And one position we explored quite frequently was seated, because we spend a lot of time in a seated position. I am never going to try to convert you to a different holster position. We're well aware that I carry an appendix. For me, it is a superior position, but it doesn't mean it's superior for you. I reluctantly changed to appendix when I injured my shoulder and couldn't reach back. It took me about 8 weeks to heal, so I carried appendix exclusively for 8 weeks. At the end of the time, I said, boy, this is a lot better, and I stayed with it. It's yielded tremendous advantages, but there are some compromises involved with it too. As with everything, there is never one better than the other. You're making a series of benefits and compromises that you have to work through and see what's going to work for you. Okay? Your lifestyle, the way you dress, the way you live, the way your body's shaped, the equipment that you buy is going to make a big difference. And in order to be good with appendix holsters, you've got to buy one that's built by one of the top builders of appendix holsters. Spencer Keepers does a great job. Tony at JM Custom Kydex, Tom Kelly at Darkstar Gear, John Hopman at Filster, Gabe New. A lot of people are building great holsters that are made just for appendix because it's really not an interchangeable thing. The cant's different and the setup's different. It needs to have a wing, needs to have a pad underneath, and then you need to spend time finding out where you carry it. My good friend AJ Zito carries towards the center. I carry over here a little bit more, so I'm more at the, this kind of 1 o'clock, 1:30 position, and he's at 12 o'clock. We're built different than each other. We use a different type of pad than each other. That's fantastic. You got to figure out how you make it work. The other side with appendix is you got to have a belt that's flexible, which is contrary to what you need for a strong side carry belt. Strong side carry belt does what? Well, it needs to be rigid so the gun can't roll out. Here, the gun is being held in and tucked on the flat of the body, so it needs to be able to flex and follow not only the shape of the wing, but as you move. So I've been sitting here with an appendix on. I'm not dying. Everything's good. But if I had to draw from this position, there's several good benefits and one possible detriment that we have to be super careful of, okay? I can simply drive from this position and draw as I normally would standing. I'm in a real low stool now, so I'm about 6'1", so this has really got me down to the ground. But I would clear the cover garment in this position, drive my hand in, and then all I'm going to do is bring the gun up. Now, right here, it's going to muzzle me briefly. But as soon as it gets to here, I'm going to flip the end of the muzzle out. Okay? Now, I've got the end of the muzzle. Depending on what's in front of me, I may go iron sight high, all right, muzzle proud to get it over a steering wheel or around what I'm doing if somebody's in front of me, or I may go more straight to the target. Now, I'm using my HK VP9, so let's make sure it's empty. Okay? I'm pointing this in a safe direction. I have a 100-foot berm in front of me. You guys are on the camera. I've got to use this because this is my holster rig. I've tried several others. One of the few times I had to shoot this video multiple times because the other rigs just weren't working with the blue guns very well. So we're going to stick with this one. Now, once I've drawn, I can shoot from the seated position or I can stand from the seated position and be ready to do that. But I'm always going to reholster from the standing position. So as you practice, make sure you put the gun back in while you're standing, because it would be incredibly negligent to try to reholster while you're seated unless you have no choice. And there may be a reason you might come up with something contextually that you could do that. Now, the other side of this, as I draw, I could simply stand up, okay? I'm going to put two activities together, which means I get my feet under me. As I start to drive, I clear the cover garment and draw the firearm. I found that makes very little difference. You need to get your Mantis out, look at your holster draw analysis, start from the seated position and see what difference it makes on the timing of it. Usually costs me about 1/10 to 2/10 to stand up to draw. Now, there may be times in the world where I can't stand up or I don't want to stand up, all right? If I'm sitting in a booth, if I'm in a car, or if somebody's watching me and I'm just trying to get the pistol out while I do it. But there are times where I want to stand up and start to move. Now, let's talk about strong side, okay? I'm going to do this with strong side. Let me grab my SIRT pistol here. Okay, all right, non-functioning SIRT pistol. Good to go, great practice for this. Something you can do outside, practice in your car, practice in a seated position. All right, so I have a strong side here. Now what really changes? Not a whole lot, okay? I've got to clear the cover garment. I may push the hip out slightly, but what I gotta be really careful of is this will go straight across my leg for a long period of time, okay? If I get on the trigger too early, that's gonna be a big problem too. So a lot of muzzling happening here. What I try to do is draw straight up to a retention and then bring it over underneath the eye if I'm gonna stay in a seated position. But under high speed activities, under duress, I may or may not do that. So probably better when I go to draw here to stand up if at all possible, okay? Well, same thing when I go to reholster. Now guys, I don't have a holster, I just have a belt, okay? I didn't have an inside, I couldn't get two holsters in here. You can see the problem, all right, to do this. Now, what if I'm sitting in a taller chair? Well, life gets easier, okay? I'm already in a position to stand up here. There's less muzzling involved because my legs are not bent at such a deep angle, and I can draw from this position and drive out. And then I holster in the standing position. No, my head's getting cut off there a little bit. So practice this. Use the Manus. It's a great way to measure what time it's going to cost. Practice it seated, practice it standing. Always reholster from the standing position if at all possible. And that way you can get rid of the novelty of this experience, and if you ever face it, you'll be good to go. Drawing in the car is significantly different. Steering well here, may have to shoot that way, may have to shoot this way, may have to shoot behind me. I'd recommend getting some experience in using some tactics inside the car. Craig Douglas's ECQC class finishes with a whole car section of fighting inside the car, which was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it. And then there's some really good qualified people out there teaching vehicle tactics and how to draw and move. But for us, if we got a chance, we're going to drive, and if we have to fight, we'll have to draw. So I'd suggest start practicing these things and find the best way for you to do it with your carry rig. Not asking you to change to appendix. But you can see how easy it is for me to get there, okay? I used to have a problem with tucking the shirt, but the Enigma's kind of overcome that. So even with dress clothes, I could still carry in the front position. So that's changed things for me a lot, okay? Just some novelty for you, man. Dry fire can get dull if you let it, but practice some of these different positions. I'm gonna make a future video on from the ground. So if I was laying on my back in the supine position, how can I draw the gun? How can I get back to my feet? It needs to be a process that's thought about. So look for that coming in the future. And I hope that helps you out a lot, guys. It's kind of an interesting topic, and it's another way to make it a little more interesting in your daily practice. Okay, use your Manus. Holster draw analysis, made for this, perfect. Subscribe to Active Self Protection Extra. Subscribe to the main channel too. Hit the like button, leave a comment, appreciate it. I'm Brian Hill with The Complete Combatant. And as always, measure, refine, and perform.